Hi, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 231, and I'm Lisa, your host, also known as Fiber Nymph on Ravelry and Instagram. Today is Wednesday, February 8th, and we've got another dreary gray day out there. Yep, winter in Pittsburgh, late winter. I guess, is this late winter now that we're in February? I guess, because the spring equinox will be next month, right, in March. I'll say we're in late winter. It makes me feel better to think we're in late winter. Anyway, we've got the drearies and the grays going on. I would like some sunshine, personally. We're supposed to get snow tonight, though. So it would be nice if if it gets cold, because actually it's pretty warm today. It was very warm yesterday. It was like in the 60s. Today it's a little cooler, but it's not too bad. But it's going to get cold again. And if it's going to be cold, I would like snow, because at least you can go out and play and have fun in the snow. When it's just cold or cold and rainy, that's no fun. Either be cold and snow or warm up and give us spring. That's my thought. So, for what that's worth. Okay, let me introduce Jen from the Netherlands. Actually, let me say hello to Jen from the Netherlands. She introduced herself on the 90% Knitting board on Ravelry in the welcome thread. So hi, Jen. Thank you for doing that. That was the first introduction we've had in a few months, so that was very exciting. I love reading your introductions. So if you've been watching the podcast and haven't introduced yourself, I'd love it if you would. You don't have to, obviously, but it would be great. I like reading those, and I give you a little shout out on the podcast. Anyway, to everyone though who is watching, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I hope you enjoy the episode. It should be a fairly shorter one than last week because I don't really have much in the line of shop news today. So we'll see how this goes. But I think that is everything I have as far as administrative kind of stuff. So we're going to get right into the knitting. And I have a finished object to show you, which I think you probably have already noticed if you've watched the podcast for a while. I'm wearing it. My Antler cardigan. It is finished. Ta-da! I'm so excited. I'm thrilled with this sweater. I am just tickled. It's the best fitting sweater I have ever made. I think, ever. Well, it's the best fitting cardigan. I'll say that. I've made some pullovers that fit pretty nicely. This is the best fitting cardigan, though, that I have made, I would say, yeah, forever. So, again, this is the Antler Cardigan by Tin Can Knits. I knit it out of Cascade 220 Heathers in the Aspen colorway. And it's been on the needles. It was on the needles officially 14 months minus 1 day because I cast it on December 4th, 2015, and I totally finished it. The buttons went on last Friday, the 3rd, so that was just 1 day short of 14 months. However, there was huge chunks of time in there that it did not get worked on at all. It's interesting. I had never noticed this before on project pages, but in that right-hand column at the very bottom, it has, let me see, let me get to it so I can tell you exactly. Okay, so underneath where you have, you know, your status and start and finish date and all that, and then it tells you about the pattern and about the yarn. Below there, though, it says what day you originally queued it, the pattern, if you ever queued it, I guess, what day you created the project. I created it December 28th, 2015, but I had already started it back on the 4th. So I'm not sure. I guess I just didn't start the project page at the same time I started the sweater. The last I updated was February 3rd, but then underneath there it says progress updates. I've never noticed that before. And if you click on the link next to that, like mine says 7 updates, it shows you all these little calendars of when you added information about your project as you went on. But it also tells you if you hibernated it or how many months passed between working on it. So I cast it on in December 2015, then 7 months passed, and there's this little sleepy icon. I think it's really cute. And then I didn't pick it up again until August of 2016. Worked on it some then, and then another month passed. And then I worked on it in October of last year and November. And November is when I realized I had to fix the length and the button band and all that. So 2 months passed. So honestly, that's what, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I really did the knitting of the sweater in a little under 4 months for the most part, which isn't too bad for a sweater. It just dragged out because I kept hibernating it. So that was just a little aside. I had just never noticed that little link there, that project progress updates. So that was kind of cool. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the modifications I made to this sweater, because I did do some mods. The first modification I did was for the sleeve increases. The pattern, if I recall correctly, because that was a long time ago, the sleeves were the first thing I did. But the pattern, I believe, had you increasing the sleeves much more quickly, so they would have been much fuller down towards the bottom. And I didn't want that. I wanted them like this. See how nice and fitted they are? I like a not skin tight sleeve, but I want it to be a little fitted. I don't want this all blousey down here because it just gets in the way. So I did modify how I did my sleeve increases. I have that spelled out in great detail on my project page. So if you are interested in knitting this sweater and would like to see my mods for that, go read the project page because I have them really spelled out in detail. The second modification I did was actually, I don't know if this is really a mod, but I knit the body and the yoke in 2 different sizes. The body I did in the 47-inch size, and the yoke I did in the 43-inch size, just because I'm not quite as broad up top, and if I knit the tops of my sweaters to match the bottom, I need the extra width in the bottom because I carry my weight in my tummy, like right here in the front. That's where I have a little poof. And I like my sweaters to be a little blousey there. But if I do that size the whole way up through here, it'll fit through the bust generally because I'm larger there. But the sleeve or the shoulders just hang off my shoulders, the shoulders of the sweater. Too big. So I can do the 43-inch size for the bust. So that's why I just changed it. I cast on, you know, it's a bottom up, so you do the bottom band in the US 5 and then you switch to US 7 for the stockinette portion of the body. Interestingly, I was working on that part of it on our canoe trip to Canada, driving up to Canada and driving back from Canada. I worked on it. However, I was realizing that I was getting a fairly loose fabric, looser than I wanted. So rather than not be able to work on it till I got home and was able to downsize to a US 6, what I did was I did the right side, the knitting, because I knit continental, and so I'm a much tighter knitter than I am purler. I purl fairly loosely, continental. But anyway, I did the knitting on the right side with the US 7, and then I would purl back using the US 5. And that evened things out and gave me the perfect fabric. Perfect drape. It's not too open. It literally, I love it. So that worked really well for me. Once I got up to the yoke, I did have to do a couple, I had to do decreases, which I divided between 2 different right side rounds. Just, you know, randomly put them in around the circumference of the sweater. That was fine to get down to the stitch count that I needed for the smaller size on the top. The top I did knit all on US 7s because it had cables and I knew it would pull in anyway. I didn't feel the need to do the US 5s on the wrong side. So, and that worked out fine. The last modification I did was for the button bands, which if you remember when I did that first button band, it turned out to be very, very loose and floppy. The pattern calls for doing 4 stitches, picking up 4 stitches for every 5 rows. And it didn't work well for me, so I ripped that out, and when I redid it, I ended up doing 3 stitches for every 4 rows, and that worked perfectly. The other thing I did when I had ripped that button band out was I also surgically altered the length of the sweater, because I did knit it to the length that the pattern called for, which I believe was 18 inches from the underarm to the end, and that had it coming way down below my hips, and that was way, way too long. I ended up removing about 5 inches. I basically just threaded a needle in the same way you would for an afterthought heel, then cut off the bottom part, and I just re-knitted the 2 inches of the bottom band worked perfectly, and it's a much more comfortable length for me. So I think that's everything. The pattern itself, I think it was a very well-written pattern. I will say she, I believe, writes in a way that she assumes that you have some experience in knitting a sweater or doing these sweater-oriented techniques before. Some things aren't spelled out super detailed. So I'm not sure that I would say this is a good first sweater for a non-adventurous knitter. But if you've knit a couple basic sweaters before, I think you probably would be able to handle this if you know how to cable and do things like that. But overall, I like the pattern, and I am super pleased with the finished object. I've worn it a little bit every day ever since I finished it. I would continue wearing it for the rest of this podcast, but it's actually quite warm today. So I'm going to pause here and do a quick wardrobe change so that I do not melt before the end of the podcast. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. That's better. I feel much cooler. I had a t-shirt on underneath it, but it's a little too cool to just wear a t-shirt, yet wearing that sweater was going to just not be a good thing for the long haul of this podcast. So I am now comfortable, and we can continue. So that was my only finished object because I did a lot of work on some other things, and I cast on some new items this week as well. But the Antler cardigan, that's the only FO, but that's a pretty good FO. I mean, it's such an accomplishment to finish a sweater, isn't it? Let's go on with the works in progress. So my next item is the hoodwinked staggered rib socks, which I'm still on the first one. So the last time you saw this, sorry, my yarn is all over the place here. I was, let's see, I guess I was doing the heel. I'd done the heel flap. Actually, I think this is old. I think this was from the time before. I think I had just started the heel decreases is what I did, the gusset decreases. So I am now done with the gusset decreases, and I am on the foot. So I believe I've probably got another, well, let's see. Yeah, this is, I've got a ways to go before my toe. But I'm making progress, and I still love it. Again, this is the Flying Kettle Yarns in the Hoodwink colorway. And this is my own pattern. I'm calling it the staggered rib. Again, it's not something I've ever written up. I might write it up at some point, but for right now, I'm just enjoying knitting it. And I find it to be a really good pattern to use for highly variegated yarns. I don't know why. It's funny, this side doesn't have so much of that zigzag, but you can really see that like magenta zigzag on the back. That's so interesting. You can kind of see it on this side, but they're coming along. You know, it's funny. I've got tons of socks, and I've actually got some that I could probably purge out of my drawers, like, because I'm still wearing them even though they have holes in them and they're beyond mending. I'm just so reticent to throw away hand knit socks. But I really do have a lot of socks at this point, and I probably could get rid of some of the really old ones and focus my sock knitting probably for other people for a while. I need to knit Bill another pair of socks soon. He loves his socks, and he wears them all the time. He's only got 3 pairs, so they're constantly in the wash. Okay, so that was the hoodwinked staggered rib socks. A little bit of progress, not a ton, but that's okay. Let's move on to the 9-inch circular experiment socks, which when I showed them to you last week, I told you I switched them over, and I'm going to just do the magic loop from here on out. By the way, the 9-inch circulars have been claimed. They got swooped up pretty fast. They're actually still sitting here. I'm going to get them in the mail in the next day or two. So if you were the person that I said you could have them, I'm sorry I haven't gotten them into the mail yet. It's just been kind of a crazy week, but they are coming to you. Anyway, I did do that, and here we go. I have that first sock finished. This marker is not where it was last time. This is actually marking where I'm going to put my afterthought heel in at this point, but you can, oh my goodness, you can see, just look at it this way. You can see all this through here. This is about where I quit using the circular, that 9-inch circular, and I put in my longer cable needle to do magic loop. It's just so much more even. The knitting is amazingly more even than it was in that top section. Look how lumpy and irregular my stitches were. It just wasn't for me. But after I switched it over, it actually worked out great because my son and I went to go see Rogue One last Friday. I hadn't seen it yet. He's seen it like 7 times. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. So I took this along and I worked on it during the movie, and I got probably 6.5 inches done in the theater, which is why it's as long as it is. This is a very long sock. And I still have to do the afterthought heel. This is all of the yarn I have left from that first ball. I think it will be enough to do the heel. But if it's not, I may have an issue. This is Patton's Croy. I do not have the color number written down here. I'm sorry. But this is the first time I've actually done socks on Patton's Croy. I'd cast a pair on a while back, and that was when I realized I can't do them on US 1s because the fabric would have stood up by itself and been completely bulletproof. So I used 1.5s. Honestly, I think I could have gone up to US 2s because this is still very, very dense fabric. It's also a very wide sock compared to the width of my socks usually. I probably could have decreased my stitch count as well, but I did not know because I have not used this yarn before. It's definitely a heavy worsted weight. It's probably closer to a sport weight, to tell you the truth, in my estimation. I like it. It reminds me, this sock reminds me of the Conmara wool socks I have from Ireland that are really nice heavy wool socks. I don't wear them inside shoes. I just wear them around the house as house socks because they're so heavy and dense and warm. That's kind of what this reminds me of. So that may be what ends up happening with these, because I have the feeling they're also going to be quite loose up here in the cuff part. And they're super long. So I guess it might be good that it's a little wider up at the top because it'll have to go further up my calf, but it's an experiment all around, I guess, considering this yarn is a new experience for me as well. I love the colors, though. The blue and purple is just lovely. So I'm going to wait, I believe, and use the, or put the heel in after both sock tubes are done. We'll see. We'll see what I decide. Oh, here's the ball band. I can tell you the color number 2015. So, yay. Patton's Croy Socks FX. So, there's that. Then I cast some things on. I had a ball of Malabrigo Rios sitting on the shelf up at the mountain house, sitting with my yarn. I have a minor stash up at the mountain house because it's not home if there's no yarn there, right? So I took a small collection of yarn up there a while back, and I took all of my Malabrigo Rios with me. So I had wound up this ball or this skein of Purpurus, I believe is what it's called, last year at some point, probably late winter, maybe around this time, who knows. I was going to do leg warmers with it, or not leg warmers, boot toppers with it. And I cast them on. I was just kind of doing my own thing, kind of a rib design, and I decided no, I really didn't like it. So I ripped them back out. So this ball has been sitting there ever since, and it's such a pretty color. It's got a lot of deep purples and blues in it. So I pulled it off the shelf the other day because a while ago I had told Emma that I would make her another hat. I haven't made her a hat in a while. And I have had the Loden slouchy hat pattern in my queue for a while. I purchased it. Let's see, where's the, okay. Here's a picture of it from the pattern. So it's a slouchy hat. It's got lace work and it's got cables. It's really cute. So I thought I will make this because in my experience, I can get a hat out of one skein of yarn. Well, 2 things I did not take into consideration. Number 1, Cables always use up more yarn than non-cabled things. And number two, this is quite slouchy. I mean, it's not overly slouchy, but it also has a pom-pom. So I did not take any of those things into consideration when I pulled the Rios off the shelf. Rios has, I believe, 220 yards in it. The pattern calls for 230 yards. No. Okay, see, this is different. See, I was looking at the pattern, and then I looked at the same stuff on the pattern page on Ravelry, and it's different information. Because it says 247 yards here, but that's only of the one yarn. On the pattern page, they list 4 different yarns. One of them's a DK, and 3 of them are worsted. At any rate, it says the hat requires approximately 220 yards in light worsted. I don't know. I've always considered Rios to be a light worsted. I'm not sure if it technically is or not, but I thought I'd be okay. And then the pom-pom takes up another like 80 yards. I'm not going to do the pom-pom. At least if I do a pom-pom, it won't be out of yarn, period. It'll be maybe one of those fake furry ones. We'll see. I'm not sure what Emma would want. At any rate, I am this far into the hat. So at this point, I've got the brim and I've got... Here, I'll show you this side. And I've worked through the first 20 some... I'm on row 27 of the chart, and there are 60 rows in the chart. So I'm almost halfway through the chart. Oh, no. Well, I'm almost halfway through the hat, I guess, because the chart starts on row 14, so that would also take into account the brim. So I'm almost up to the halfway point in the chart, and then there are still like 4 more rounds decreasing at the top that aren't in the chart. So I'm about halfway through. I don't know how much yarn I've used. I think I have probably used about half of the yarn, though. I need to weigh it just for my own peace of mind. I'd really like to be able to get this hat out of this yarn. I'm going to be sad if I find out that I'm going to be super short, because that means I'm either going to have to buy another skein of this, and trying to match this is going to be hard because this is hand-dyed yarn from Malabrigo, and the colorways do not always match up super well. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if it would be possible to just stop the chart earlier. I'd like to not have to do that if I don't need to, but we'll see. I will monitor the situation as I go. So far, the only modification I've made on this hat is that it called for just using a US 7, and I did do the brim on a US 5, and then moved up to a US 7 because I like my brims to be a little snugger than they would be if they were knit on the same size as the rest of the hat. And I think Emma would probably also agree. So that is the Loudon Slouchy hat. Did I call it Loudon before? I think I said Loudon. And that's by Julia Trice. It's a very pretty pattern. I think once it's done and I block it, you know, it's obviously going to open up more and the pattern will be easier to see. Although in that dark yarn, it'll be more difficult to see than if it was in a lighter color or a less variegated color. But I think it's still going to look pretty. I love Malabrigo Rios. It is my go-to nice yarn for gifts because it's super wash and you don't have to worry if somebody throws it in the washer. They can do whatever they need to with it. Okay, so that was one thing I cast on this week. Then I had the urge, and I feel like maybe I mentioned this last week, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I was just thinking about it in my brain. I had the urge to cast on a hand-spun shawl, or a shawl using my hand-spun. And I didn't have a pattern in mind. I just wanted to do my usual elongated triangular shawl recipe that I've done several times already and you've seen. So that is what I did. Let's see, can I find, oh, I think I'm in the middle of a row. I am. I can't really even open it up for you. Lovely. But this is the yarn that I'm using. This was a bat from Sanguine Griffin. Tells you how old it was because she hasn't been the Sanguine Griffin in a while now. It was called Sir Bat, and I do not have the tag anymore. I don't remember what the fiber content was. I think it was merino and there's some silk in there maybe. I don't know. But anyway, okay, so I'm sorry, I forgot that I was in the middle of a row here. This is how big it is now. So this is my center spine. Pull it down. There you go. I love how the colors are working up. And my plan is I'm going to do this for a while yet. And then at a certain point, yet to be determined, I'm going to start incorporating just 2-row stripes of this yarn, which was Zarzuela. I can never pronounce it. Zarzuela's fibers. She is no longer dyeing. But this has been in my stash for a while, and I spun it up a year or two ago. It was Superwash BFL in the Indian corn colorway. So what I'm going to do is probably actually soon, because these rows are getting longer, so this is going to go faster. I'm going to put just a 2-row stripe of this in, and then, you know, knit another 6 or 8 rows using this, whatever I can get. I don't know. I haven't decided the actual number of rows yet, but my goal is to have these stripes be towards the bottom of the triangle. Then once I'm out of this, I'm going to do the bottom edge all in this, so it'll be nice and bright at the edge. And I just think this, it looks to get nice together. I love the yellow and the orange, and I think it'll coordinate very nicely with these blues and yellows and golds and greens. It's a very pretty yarn. It was a lovely bat. So that is my progress on that, and I think I'm knitting that on US 7s also. I didn't write that down either, sorry. Bad podcaster. I have written out my elongated triangular shawl recipe, what I do in past shawls. I will try to make notes about that in this shawls project page, so you know where to go if you're interested in looking at that as well. Okay, the last thing I cast on, third cast on this week, is the thing that I said I probably wasn't going to do for a while. I wasn't ready to go down this rabbit hole, and then I did. I cast on the Find Your Fade shawl, but I had a really good reason. I love having one big epic project made out of my yarns on my table when I do shows as a show sample. And for the past few years, I've had a color affection shawl made out of my bout semi-solids, which has been lovely, but at this point it is kind of dated. That's not really like a big pattern that everybody's doing anymore. But I thought, how awesome would it be to have a Find Your Fade made out of 7 different varieties of my variegated and speckled yarns. That's what I wanted to do. So it took me a few days to figure out what color combinations I wanted to use and how to put them together, but I am super happy with it so far. So let me show you. First, I'm going to show you the yarns that I'm using. I have them all wound into balls already, so I'll show you the actual shawl in a sec. So I'm not sure how easy it'll be for me to show them to you all in a row. I may try to insert a picture here of the yarns before I wound them into balls. If I remember, I will do that. Anyway, the first one I started with was actually a sock blank. So this was a hand-painted sock blank that I made last fall, and I kept this one for myself. And I've still got plenty left to do a pair of socks with, because the first color you don't use that much of. So that is that one. And this is the Find Your Fade shawl by Andrea Mowry. That's the designer. So this was my first color, and then that faded into this, which is my Half Moon colorway, which is sort of blowing out. Let me pull it back here. This is more accurate. It's a nice gold and yellow with, it picks up the colors. It picks up a lot of the colors in the leaves. The taupe part here isn't so much in here, but I like how it picked up the colors in the leaves, because then the speckles in this are also the other colors that are in the leaves. So it seemed like it would work. So then from this, I went to the third color, which is what I'm on now, and this is Dickinson. So Dickinson has Dickinson actually does have this taupey color in it, so it could have worked right after the sock blank as well, but I wanted to get this one in there. But the lighter parts of this coordinate pretty nicely with the taupey parts. And then we've got the speckles in this and the speckles in this that do coordinate. I would say actually odd man out of all the ones I chose to use is probably going to be this one, but I really wanted this one in there. So anyway, okay, so this is the one I'm on now. This is my third colorway. And you'll notice I am alternating. I'm alternating sparkle, non-sparkle, sparkle, non-sparkle. I think that's going to look kind of cool. So from here, I will then go on to this one, which is called Imagine. I have not had this one in the shop, I don't think. I don't remember if I put this one in the shop. I dyed it up for a show last fall, and I'm not sure that I've ever done it again. I'm actually not even sure if I have the recipe for it. I'm sure I do. It's probably jotted down, but without a name, so I'll have to like decipher it. Anyway, so that will go into that. And then after this, we will go into this, which has those same oceany blues. This is Smooth Sailing Sunny Skies. So this will pick up the blue. And then from Smooth Sailing Sunny Skies, we're going to go into Runaway, which is also a lot of blue, but it's got more black in it and it has speckles and it's a little bit more muted. And it's also got this really hot green in it. I don't know if, there you go. You can kind of see that real hot green like right there. So from here, the last yarn will then be Willoughby, which has a lot of that hot green in it, and some hot blue and a lot of fun speckles. So that's going to be the last fade. I'm not sure. I'm happy with my color choices. I'm not sure really if this is the way they were meant to fade. I think pretty much you can do whatever you want. It's called Find Your Fade. You do what works for you. And so I think this will work for me. Plus, it will definitely be a really nice show sample to showcase these 7 yarns, at least the 6. I mean, the sock blank is sort of a one-off, obviously, because they're all one of a kind. But I think it'll work really nicely, and I'm really looking forward to having it done. My goal, and I don't know that this will happen, is I would love to get it done before Indie Knit and Spin, which is on the 25th of this month. That might be me being an overachiever and crazy, but we'll see. Like I said, I'm on the 3rd color now. I just did the melt part of it. Let me see, where's the front? This is the front. So here's what I have so far. Now, the other interesting thing is, since this was knit from a sock blank, it's so much tighter and squished together than the rest of this. I think what I'm going to do one of these evenings is I'm actually just going to soak this tip of it and then pin it out to block overnight and open it up so that it's as open as the rest of this is. Because it's garter stitch, but it's very nubbly garter stitch at this point, and the eyelet section is very hard to discern with it this tight and kinky. So I'm gonna, that's my plan, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just gonna sort of give this a quick soak and block just to open it up so that I can see a better idea of what this looks like. So I'm very happy with it. I think it looks pretty cool. So there's my first, this section is that first melt, and then here's my second color, and then I just obviously, as you can see, did the second melt. Here's the second eyelet section, which you can see much better. I will say, out of all of this, the eyelet sections are slowing me down. If anything keeps me from getting this done by the 25th, it will be those eyelet sections. When I started the first one, I did like the first 2 rows of it and messed it up completely, had to rip it out and start those over. The first section, I definitely had to have like no distractions. I couldn't have podcasts on, couldn't have anybody else in the room. I just had to focus on doing the eyelet sections. 2 rows, it's not difficult, but it was just something I had to focus on. The second eyelet section was easier. I knew what I was supposed to be doing and it went better. However, it's still very slow for me. I'm doing these on, I'm using Chaigu needles, which I don't have that many sets of Chaigu. But this is, I believe, a US Is that 4? I'm sorry. My brain this week is just not, apparently. I think it's a US 4. Yeah, it's a US 4. So I like the Chai-Gu cable for this because it's nice and sturdy, and it keeps the weight of this pretty steady. So anyway, it's coming along. I'm having fun with it. I love adding those color melts. They're so much fun. It's kind of like that's what you work towards, is to do that color melt thing. So we'll see. We'll see how much I get done on it. I would love to have it done for the show, but that remains to be seen if that's even reasonable. It probably means I'll be spending a lot of time working on this and maybe not on other things. You'll notice you did not see my Granny Stripes blanket this week. That is because I really did not work on it. I think I maybe did 1 row since the last time you saw it. Not for any reason. I'm not tired of it. I still love it. I still enjoy doing it. And I've got minis coming in, so I definitely need to work on it. I need to focus on this. And this past week, I just wanted to get the sweater done. And I just didn't have as much knitting time last week either. So it'll come back. I just may not show you the Granny Stripes blanket every single week at this point, depending on how much or how little I work on it. I'll show it to you every few weeks just so you can get an update, as long as I'm getting some progress made on it. I think that's pretty much everything I worked on this week. I did do a tiny bit of spinning again on that blue BFL up at the mountain house, just because Bill and I were leaving to go somewhere and he wasn't quite ready, so I just sat out there for like 10 minutes and spun. Again, nothing to really show you. And my 1 year of Stitches project, I've still not picked that back up. It's going to have a gap in it. It's not going to be a full year, but I will get back to it. So that brings us to the knit along. So a year in the life of a knitter. The January prize winners have all gotten back to me, and so we're all good there. Everybody chose their prize. That seemed to work really well. We're in February, so again, we're still in the winter season. Our themes for winter are warmth, coziness, and home. And our February yarn focus is Aran and worsted weight, which again, you don't have to use those if you don't want to, but those are just, what I'm putting out there is it's a good month to work on things in those weights. Now, I told you last week I was going to add a little bonus element to February, and that is what I'm going to tell you about now. So this is your February challenge. I'm not sure if I'll do these every month, but we're going to have a February challenge because this is a short month of the year. We only have 28 days, and we're 8 days in, so there's only 20 left, okay? I'm calling it the Keep It Short Challenge, and so what you need to do if you want to participate, and it's totally voluntary, you don't have to, but if you would like to participate in the Keep It Short Challenge, you need to knit something out of either worsted or Aran. So that one, it is required for this challenge, is either worsted weight or Aran weight, that uses 100 yards or less. So it's going to be a short project, something really fast, because Aran and worsted weight, you can knit up something with 100 yards pretty quickly. That's a really fast small hat or a fast couple of mittens. I mean, you figure 100 yards is right around a half a ball of yarn, half a skein of yarn, maybe a little less. So this is an excellent challenge if you've got scraps and leftovers from other projects. Lots of little projects. I got on Ravelry earlier and did a search using the advanced pattern search option, and there was thousands of projects for under 150 yards, so I am sure many of those would work for 100 yards or less as well, like Bird of Happiness and other Bonbon, the little Susan Claudino Bonbon Bunny, little hearts, stuffed hearts. Valentine's Day is coming up next week, so there's lots of options. Anyway, I'm going to start a separate thread for the February challenge, finished objects. It's a no chatter thread, so if you participate in those, please, and finish an object, it has to be started today. No, it can't be something that's already started before today. So it has to have been started on or after February 8th and must be finished no later than February 28th to count for this challenge. I will put up that thread and you can post your finished objects photos in there. Please include how much yardage you used. and what yarn you used so that we know. You are welcome to also post your challenge, your February challenge items. You can post those in the regular chatter thread for the winter quarter as well, because that way then you'll also be entered for that drawing. There will be a drawing for the February challenge. I'll pick one winner from that at the end of February. But then if you want to post them in the regular thread too, you have my permission to do that. You're more than welcome to post in both places. Just to let you know, because this has been a little bit of an issue, that original thread that I started for the year in the Antler KAL, the one that has the guidelines, that is not a post to post any finished objects in. That is, you're only posting your chatter and your finished object pictures in the quarterly thread. Right now it's the winter quarterly thread, and specifically for the February challenge, you'll post those. You can post those in that thread, but to be in the drawing for the February challenge, specifically post in that thread. Nothing else should be posted in the guidelines thread except questions that pertain to the guidelines. That's why I haven't locked that thread yet, just because I want to leave it open in case somebody does have a question about it. But that's the only thing that should be getting posted in that thread. So just wanted to clarify that. Okay, well, not really lastly, but one of the last things I want to talk to you about is some new things I got this week. And honestly, this was such a highlight of my week because my week didn't start off super fabulous, which I'll talk to you about that a little bit later. But I got a package in the mail from a viewer who had asked me a while back if she could send me some minis. I believe that's what she said she wanted to send me a package, and I'm pretty sure it was for minis. And she is in Austria, so that was really cool too. And I was just really touched that she wanted to, so I gave her my address. Well, I got home yesterday to the mountain house and there was a box waiting for me, and I looked at that. I'm like, oh my gosh, if that is full of minis, I'm going to have tons of minis. And indeed, it was full of a lot of minis. But she sent me some other really fun goodies too. So this is from Karina, who is a member of our group and quite active. Karina, what is your RAV name? I meant to look this up, and I'm pretty sure I know what it is. I just don't want to say it incorrectly. Hang on. It's Mucklpoo, M-U-C-K-L-P-U, 1986. Okay, I was pretty sure that's what it was. I couldn't remember what the numbers were. Anyway, her name is Karina. And so she sent me this box full of goodies, and I'm just so tickled. So I don't have the actual physical box because I sort of destroyed it as I was opening it. But minis. Look at the minis. And more minis. And more minis. More minis. And more minis. And a few more minis. Oh my gosh, right? Like crazy awesome goodness, mini goodness. So I thought that was fabulous. But that wasn't all she sent me. It was like, the box didn't end. It was like, you know, the TARDIS. It was bigger on the inside. So there were some goodies. Well, she included a nice little note for me. But she also included some yummy things, which I just got this last night, which is why these are still intact. But there is this, which is, I guess it's pronounced Manner? I'm not sure. I have no idea how to read this language. Is this German? I'm sorry. She's from Austria, so do they speak German in Austria? I don't know. I'm so sorry. At any rate, I'm guessing this is probably something hazelnutty, because I think those are hazelnuts on there, and it looks lovely, and I love wafery things, so that's probably going to get eaten today. And then she also included this bag of chocolates, which I can't read anything on here, so I can't even tell you what they are, but I did eat one earlier today because I just had to try them, and it was so good. It was like multiple layers of chocolate, so it was like a dark chocolate outer shell, and then there's a lighter chocolate inside, and then there's a center, and I don't know what's in the center, but it was very, very tasty. And it looks green on the picture. I guess there's 4 layers, because then there's a chocolate layer, then there's the center. So it looks green there. It was not green when I opened it, though. But whatever these are, Karina, these are very yummy. So thank you so very much. These I will have to, like, pace myself with, because I'll make myself sick if I eat too many of those at one time. But that wasn't it either. She also included this, which is a super cute little needle minder because I do not have a needle minder. And she said this was just sort of a last minute add-on for my 365 days of stitches, which now I really have to get back to doing that, right? It's from Christine Brown, who is on Etsy. It's Stitchin' Mad, STITCHINMAD, her Etsy shop. So I am not sure if she is from Austria or if maybe she's from Germany or somewhere else in Europe. But yeah, so now I have a needle minder. So that's exciting. But then there was two more things. And the first thing was this bag. Look at this little project bag. Isn't it adorable? It was made by Baltic Needle, who is from Germany. And it's got this great little lighthouse charm on it. And these little star flowery kind of appliques. It's just so pretty. I love it. And the inside of the fabric is flowers. And then in the bag was a skein of yarn. It's called Shibot Garn. I don't know what that means. I know garn is wool or yarn. And it is also from Germany, she said. So this is called Fantasy is the colorway, Silver Glitter Bots. So it's really cute. Look at the cute little yarn robot on the back. Isn't he cute? So anyway, isn't that beautiful? Oh my goodness. Love the purple and the sparkles. So anyway, Karina, you totally spoiled me. This was amazing and I so appreciate it. So thank you very, very much for being so thoughtful. It was just totally unexpected. And like I said, it has made my week. So anyway, that's my new stuff for this week. That's all I have, and that's fine. I do want to talk to you regarding minis now that I think about it. Remember, I talked a few weeks ago about wanting to do a mini swap, just in an individual one me with other people. And I did contact everybody this morning. I sent messages out to everyone who had gotten in touch with me. At this point, I have enough people for the minis that I have to give out. So if anybody else wanted to get in on it, or if I somehow missed you, I really apologize. I may do this again in the future, but right now I'm full up, so I can't wait to do the swap with all these people. Okay, I think that's everything for 90% this week. 10%, like I said, it's been dreary. I'm totally ready for sunshine because this drear is just making me tired and blah, and I don't really want to do anything, which is not good. I did go snowshoeing. I took myself snowshoeing on Tuesday morning, I believe, because I was up at the mountain house in the morning before I came here, and right as it was getting light out, we had quite a bit of snow up there. There was no snow here, but there was a good 7 inches or so up there. I thought, you know what? I am going to just go down to this one park and snowshoe around the lake. There's this little tiny lake in this park. There's a nice little loop that goes around it. It takes about a half hour to do. It's nothing big, but I just needed to get out and get some fresh air. So, and I had Muffin up there with me, so I took her with me and we went down to the park and we went, well, I went snowshoeing. She just walked through all the snow. She loves snow. And that just felt so good to get out and do that. It was not a particularly bright and sunny morning or anything, but it was lovely. I had the entire park to myself too. That was kind of fun. So I did do that. But otherwise, yeah. Well, you know what? I may be misspeaking now. When did I do that? No, that was not Tuesday, because that would have been yesterday. I did that on Friday. My week is totally messed up, my days, and I'll explain why. Yeah, that was Friday, because I was working up at the mountain house that day. That's right, I was not coming back here. That's why Muffin was up there with me, because I take her up there with me if I'm going to stay up there for an entire day, so she doesn't have to be here by herself. Okay, got that straight now. But no, this week is kind of goofy because this past Monday, I had to go and do what you're supposed to do when you turn 50, and that is have a colonoscopy. I know, sorry if that's TMI, but I'm of that age now, and I know not everybody goes right when they turn 50, but I do have family history of colon cancer, and so I was fine with going, between the colon cancer thing and the, Emma having Crohn's, and I've been diagnosed with Crohn's in the past, although I'm not real sure that was a totally legit diagnosis, as I've not had nearly the problems that she's had. Anyway, yeah, so that was Monday. So basically this weekend, because the day before, if you've ever had to do this, you know that you can't eat anything. It's clear liquids only, and then you have to drink that prep stuff, which honestly was not nearly as bad as I thought it might be. I don't think I want to sit and drink it recreationally anytime soon, but it wasn't as horrible as I thought it might be based on what other people said. But Saturday, I took my doctor's advice, and she said, you know what, your prep will go so much easier if 2 days before you just don't eat heavy. She said, eat, but keep it light. She said, that's the mistake a lot of people make, is they think, oh, I can't eat it all tomorrow, so I'm going to eat lots of stuff today. She said, if you fill up 2 days before, there's that much more that has to come out of your body during the prep. She says, just don't do that. And so I took her advice, and that worked fabulously. Seriously, the prep was not a big deal. It was not fun necessarily, but it wasn't a big deal. So anyway, then I was the first person on the schedule Monday morning, so we were up super early and over to the surgery center, and Bill was there. He waited for me, he took me over and waited and everything, and I was fine about the whole thing. I didn't care that I was having it done, even though it's, not a pleasant thing to do, I'm sure. The prep, I didn't care about that. I figured that's a short-lived thing. I can get through that. I was freaked out about the anesthesia. Anytime I have had to have any type of anesthesia, I freak out. It just makes me very, very, very anxious. I don't know why. I've never had a bad experience with anesthesia, but I always have this fear that I'm not going to wake up. And it's totally unfounded, but it's there. And so that was probably the worst part of the whole thing, was just my anticipation about that, my anxious anticipation. That was the worst part of the whole thing, because once they get you in there, like I said, I was the first person in there, so I was in there and back, and in no time they were taking me back for the procedure, and they're talking to you, and all of a sudden you wake up in recovery because they give you the anesthesia and you're out, and like I could feel it starting to take that effect, and I had long enough to register. It's like, oh, please don't let me die. And the next thing I knew, I was in recovery. It's funny now. Like, I can laugh about it now. But, yeah. And everything turned out fine. So, yay. I'm done with that. Don't have to go back for another 10 years. Gotta love that. But when your week starts that way, it really has nowhere to go but up. So that's why I said getting this lovely package last night was just above and beyond anything wonderful that could happen to me this week. So anyway, yeah, I think that's it. I don't really have shop news for you at this point. I am planning to do an update next week, probably either Monday or Wednesday. I haven't gotten it scheduled yet because I just don't know when I'll be done with the dyeing for it. What I'm planning to do is I will do a short recording that will just be the shop update preview. I do that occasionally when my updates don't quite line up with when I do my regular podcast. So I think that'll be the case this time. Once I have everything dyed and I know what I'm putting in the shop, I'll just do a short little shop update preview recording that you can watch or not watch, totally up to you. And then, we'll have the update. But I will put out more information about that, both in the Ravelry group and in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works Ravelry group, and on the Fiber Nymph Dye Works page on Facebook, and probably on Instagram. So it'll be out there. We'll know about it. But otherwise, I'm finished. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to go and get some work done while this processes, and that's about it. So I will talk to you next week. Have a lovely week. Bye.